and welcome to a new episode of Good Night with Scooter Pie. I would like to introduce the interview for this episode. I recently had the pleasure of chatting with burlesque performer and producer Sweet Lorraine. We got to talk about, among other things, 2 shows that she produced, Shades of Burlesque and Safe Word. We also talked about her work as a stand-up comedian and as a famous wig designer. So please enjoy my interview with Sweet Lorraine. Woo!
Here I am with the beautiful and talented Sweet Lorraine. Hi, welcome to Good Night with Scooter Pie. Good to see you. It's been a while. I remember the first time I got to see you perform was when I first started getting to co-produce Shaken and Stirred at the Delancey back in the day. And you were our go-go sensation, and you were so amazing. So I always remembered that. And that was like 10 years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
So you have had some amazing accomplishments since then that I wanted to ask you about. So in your burlesque career, so when did you start performing?
I started performing burlesque in, I want to say 2009, sort of off and on, and I wanted to jump into it because I was really excited about the pinup aspect of it. That's what really drew me to it, and also I have a performance background and acting background, so I was like, I can combine all of the things that I like. So 2009, I just gave it a try. I took 2 classes at New York School of Burlesque, and then I just created an act, jumped on stage.
What was the first act you ever did?
Oh my gosh. The first act was it was a live band, Ixion Burlesque. Do you remember?
I remember that.
Ixion Burlesque. And my first performance actually was at Coney Island with the live.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I kittened the show, and then at the end of the show, I got to perform. I remember Legs was in it, and Gal Friday. I feel so bad I can't remember the singer's name, but yeah, it was with Ixion Burlesque and his usual band members.
Oh, cool. That's awesome to get to have your first show be at Coney Island. That's really exciting.
Yes.
And so since 2009, you've gone on to become a producer of some amazing and long-running shows also. So in 2012, you started a show called Shades of Burlesque. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Okay, so Shades of Burlesque actually came out of this year-long festival that I was producing called the Goddess Festival Oshun Returns. And Oshun is a Yoruba goddess, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a Black goddess. And like I'm really into mythology. I'm really into all of the different goddesses, and I was like, oh, Athena and all of these goddesses, but you don't see anyone that looks like you. So it's like, oh, you can be your version of this goddess, powerful, sensual energy, but it doesn't look like you. And Oshun was the first representation that I saw like that. So I wanted to celebrate that because I was doing a lot of healing around my sexuality and like how I could reclaim it and redefine it on my own terms. And I decided, I also want to do a burlesque show, but I haven't seen a burlesque show with all Black burlesque performers, so I'm going to do that. And I did it one night. I only expected to do it one night, and it sold out, and they were like, when's the next one? So I kind of kept going until 2018. 2018, yeah.
And what did it become a monthly show?
Yes, it was a monthly show at Come On Everybody. I'm talking in paragraphs lately. But anyway, so yes, it's a monthly show. And it was at Come On Everybody. It started at Wow Cafe Theater. Shout out to Hypergender Burlesque and Jay-Z Bitch, who produced that at the time. They gave me their producer slot, and they said, hey, you can produce your Shades of Burlesque show on the night that's usually reserved for Hypergender, which was a very, very popular show at the time. And it was just, it meant everything that she was generous enough to give me a chance to share and create space for Black burlesque dancers.
And I see on your website that there's going to be a 2021 Shades of Burlesque calendar that's going to be coming out.
Yes. So that is actually, I did a pre-sale, pre-order for the calendar. You can still order, but anybody who orders like June 1st on, you'll get your calendar at the beginning of July, because I'm just doing the first. Yes, so everybody's going to get their calendar on June 19th, Juneteenth. And those are for the folks who pre-ordered, but you can still order if you like.
You say that the show ended in 2018, but will it be coming back in any form in the future, do you think?
Yes, it's definitely coming back. I'm currently on hiatus because I got a little burnt out. I've been doing the show for basically 6 years straight. And also, living in New York, and I wasn't producing as well as I could have. Like, there were a lot of learning curves for me, for sure, because I'm like, I just want to get in there and I want to jump in there and I want to curate the show, but there's so many aspects to producing, and I had to slowly and frustratingly learn that along the way. And by the time I did, I was like, okay, I feel good with this, but I'm also so burnt out. I'm not enjoying myself. So that's why I stopped.
So, but you did also produce another burlesque show known as Safe Word, which is described on your Instagram and on your website as kinky burlesque and BDSM show, which highlighted Black queer performers, sex educators, and sex workers. And its focus was pleasure after trauma. Now, that is amazing.
Okay, so it really just shifted. I actually just defined it more specifically as pleasure after trauma. I was afraid to even use the word trauma in describing what I wanted for the show, because I don't want. It's a word that people run from, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's a difficult word to digest. But Safe Word NYC started because I was very interested, one, as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and all of these different very traumatic things around my sexuality and body. And I really wanted to do healing work around that. And that's really what Shades was as well. So I did that with Burlesque, and then I slowly merged into Safe Word NYC, and I loved everything that I read about BDSM and kink, because it made me feel like, okay, here I can give you a contract. I can say, this is what I absolutely love. These are the things I don't want at all. And I love that, like, talking so openly about sex or any sexual acts before anything happened. And for someone who is a survivor, like that's really important that I know that I can trust the person that I'm with. And kink and BDSM gave me that, and I wanted to share that. That Black and brown performers were also in this arena, which is usually very, the face of it is very white, like most other things. So to have a kink and BDSM show featuring performers of color, it was just a no-brainer for me.
Awesome. And considering that this show had content that was more like explicit, did you have trouble finding a venue for it?
Let's see. Well, not really, because I started at Bazaar, and there's so much I can say about Bazaar, but there was no limit on what we could do or what we could show or not show. So it's like, you can be completely naked, it's fine. So luckily, I live in New York City. There are venues that allow that. But when we moved to Come On Everybody, we had to tone it down a bit because their rules were a little more strict. So we followed those rules. But it was still kinky.
Amazing. So aside from having burlesque performances, did you also have like pro doms, and it says also sex educators, doing acts that weren't necessarily burlesque but more just performative of like what a BDSM scene would be?
Yes. So I had one of my sex educator friends I love to death, Dirty Lola, is a sex educator and sex encourager, and we've been friends for years. I met her through my partner, actually, and I had Dirty Lola come, and she did a spanking demo, and they had their own person where they drew portions on the body, like, okay, I want to spank here, slap here, and they also showed how to have virtual sex with your partner who's in a different state with these different vibrators that were electronic. So you can be in Colorado and I can be here in New York and control a vibrator, and it's just like, I don't know, I thought it was really fun. The audience was really excited about this idea of intimacy without being in the same area.
So they actually demonstrated the vibrators on each other, like as part of the performance?
Yes. And I also had a miscellaneous Dom Top, who's a professional femdom, and they did a spanking demo, a tickling demo. Oh my gosh, what else? They did a lot of things, but I feel like it's all... Oh, and then I also had two professional porn stars, King Noir and Jet Setting Jasmine. They came and they did their whole show with whipping and flogging, and it was just fantastic.
And during what years did this show run?
I was doing Shades and Safe Word, both. Let's see. I did Safe Word. I started that in, I want to say 2017. So maybe I did 2016. 2016 to 2018, like 2 years I did Safe Word. And then, but I was also doing Shades. So I was like,
Because I was just going to say, this show, Safe Word, sounds so right up my alley. How did I possibly miss it? But this was after I'd already moved to Philadelphia, or else I would have been like, please, 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 I want to be in your show and do some kind of like kink demo. But if it ever comes back, I will definitely at least come to see it, for sure. And the fact that Shades of Burlesque being the first all-black burlesque and boylesque show in New York City, that is fucking awesome.
Yeah, you know what? For a really long time, for I would say the first 2 years the show was around, it was so difficult to like get anyone to notice that Shades was actually the only all black burlesque show in New York City. They're like, oh no, there's Brown Girls Burlesque, and I'm like, well, I'm not a part of Brown Girls Burlesque, and Brown Girls Burlesque is it's all brown girls, so it's black and Asian, like everyone, Latinx, everybody is in that troupe. So I always thought it was really just a little bizarre that I always had to kind of like fight the whole time. Like, yes, this is the show and this is a real thing. I'm not just making it up. Like I did.
Would people be shocked and be like, really? This is like, but there's got to be so many.
Right. They're like,
Okay.
It's not be the only one. And we could never, well, when I had postings in Time Out New York, it was just like always in quotations, or it said, according to the producer, this is the only all black burlesque show in New York City. Just like really a lot of things I don't think other producers, even producers of color, had to, well, I don't know what they had to deal with, but definitely not white burlesque producers had to deal with that. Just always trying to have legitimacy for your show.
So you also have a business aside from performing and producing, and it's Sweet Lorraine Wigs. And you create some really phenomenal looking wigs. So can you tell us about that, how that business started, and where we can purchase your wigs?
Yeah, my business started around. It started because I was in burlesque and I was always restyling my own wigs, and a couple friends liked what I did, and they asked me to help them out, or they would ask me for tips about upkeep on their wigs, and or how to restyle it, or how to not make it look so ratty at the end, And I ended up doing a drag wig. Miss Malice asked me to do a drag wig for them. And I was like, sure, I'll do a drag wig for you. And I don't think I'd ever done one before, but I was just really into styling wigs. So I did that. And then just word of mouth, it kind of spread like, oh, there's this burlesque performer who can also take an old wig and make like a 1950s glamour wig. Like, you should check this out. So that's kind of how it started in 2017. And now, since then, I've styled wigs for like Sasha Velour. I just finished styling 4 Marie Antoinette wigs for the top 4 winners of this season 12's RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been really, really great. You can buy things. You can buy wigs on my website, sweetlorraineNY.com. And I was taking commissions up until about a couple days ago, but I'm booked for commissions. But I'll always post on my Instagram, which is Sweet Lorraine NY Wigs, and I'll have a lot of pre-styled wigs that are coming up, ready to ship. So check.
Awesome. So along with working on wigs, are there any other artistic projects you've been working on since we've been in quarantine times?
Yes, so much. I've been working on so many things. I realized yesterday I actually like counted all of the things. I said, I have 3 years worth of projects right now in the works. But what's most exciting for me right now are any of the ideas that I have around pleasure after trauma. Just because I think it's so important, and I feel like as someone who is a survivor, and you want to feel like you'll be able to connect with that part of yourself again. And what I'm learning is that a survivor like never gives up. Love never fails, and I've just been feeling more and more like love, and that I want to put more love out there. So I've decided that anything I create is me celebrating pleasure after trauma. So
That's so beautiful. Thank you for all of your work around that. Like, that's incredible. And also, I know that you did some dabbling into stand-up comedy recently too, right?
yes, oh my gosh, yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I've been working on daily is writing stand-up, and I think I have a lot of material that I'm dealing with around trauma, and I feel like if anyone is going to laugh about it and have the right to laugh about it and make jokes, it's someone who's actually been through that experience. So it's been very cathartic, and just it's shifted my outlook and in such a beautiful way where I'm healing in a way that I never thought was possible. So
I love how you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's a comedy.
Now, did you find making like kind of like going from doing burlesque performing to doing stand-up comedy, like, I mean, obviously it doesn't involve like taking clothes off, but also since burlesque can involve elements of humor or comedy, like, how does it feel different to go? Because have you done any like public stand-up comedy or just like videos so far?
I've done shows.
Oh, cool. How does it feel different as a performer to do burlesque versus doing stand-up?
Well, for stand-up and burlesque, we create a persona, and I feel like our persona carries a lot of our performance. With comedy, with stand-up comedy, it's getting to the core of who you are. Like, you really have to feel comfortable in yourself, or else it just feels uncomfortable to the audience. It feels uncomfortable to you. So it's just, it was a different shift in saying, okay, I'm using my body in this way for burlesque, but I really have to be present in a different way in my body to do stand-up. Also, it's funny to see how like people react because I'll like show up and they're like, "Oh, what show did you just come from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just in a ball gown on a Tuesday, ready to do stand-up," because that's what I feel comfortable in.
Totally. That's what I was going to ask you as a follow-up. Like, do you like dress up like Sweet Lorraine, like when you do stand-up, or do you dress down?
Yeah, well, most of the things that I've done live, I've been in full Sweet Lorraine, and it was kind of my armor. I'm like, oh, my Sweet Lorraine armor. I have my rhinestones and my 6-inch heels, and like, I'm powerful. But now I feel like I've been thinking about that more. That it's really like I'm shifting away to my own everyday, whatever style, which is already kind of eccentric because it is Monday, and I literally just threw this there and I put it on. It was hanging on the door, and I put it on just So I guess there's a little flair of Sweet Lorraine everywhere.
That's right. Well, I would love to include in this episode like a clip of you doing stand up or a clip of you performing burlesque, like whichever you would rather have. So you can if you want to send me something, or I can find something.
Okay.
But at the end would be awesome. And before we go, I just want to ask you a few more quick questions. So do you remember how there used to be, because you said you have an acting background, so you know how there was inside the actor's studio, there's that show with James Lipton, and he would ask an actor like some quick questions. So I'm going to ask you some of those actual questions that he used to ask actors. So the first one is, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word is love.
And what is your least favorite word?
Moist.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. And the next question is, if you didn't have the career that you have as producer, performer, stand-up comic, and wig designer, what is the career you would want to have?
Oh gosh, I think I would just want to be an artist of some sort. I don't see myself doing any other thing. Maybe being a mom, that would be the other career. I never thought that, but now I'm feeling motherly in my old age.
But you get to be the mother to all of your art.
Yes. I'm birthing art babies.
That's right. Birthing the art babies with love. So if you were going to write a book about your life, what would you call it?
Oh, if I were writing a book about my life, I would call it Lorraine, Chiquita, Veronica. I'm thinking of all my aliases. The Enlightened Hoe. Like, that's how I'm feeling these days.
I would 100% buy the book and read it immediately with the title, The Enlightened Hoe. That is amazing. And last, if heaven is real, we'll say that heaven is real and that there's a God, and this is like far, far in the future, and like you get to the gates of heaven, what would you want the first thing that God said to you when you arrived in heaven?
You can relax now.
Wonderful. Sweet Lorraine, thank you so much for coming to the show. It was really lovely to see you. And everyone out there, go to sweetlorraineNY.com to keep up with all the Sweet Lorraine's artistic projects that she has happening. She is the goddess in a bodice. Thank you so much. And also, you mentioned your Instagram is at Sweet Lorraine NY, and then also is the Sweet Lorraine Wigs, or is it?
It's at Sweet Lorraine NY Wigs.
Awesome.